Good morning. Uh-oh, we lost Lauren. Good morning. There she is. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince, and in the middle is Samantha Snow, who has been on our show several times. She's going to help me moderate this. And to the right of us is Lauren Glancy, and from Atlanta United. And thank you, Lauren, for being on today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. So Lauren is with Atlanta United, and she's we were talking about a little bit about some of the themes or whatever today, and one of them is just trying to make soccer more equitable. Some ways, and we might share a few of those. But also, we're going to talk about women's advocacy and those situations. So, Lauren, first off, though, can you just share your journey? How did you get to where you are with Atlanta United? You were with the professional program, and that's fantastic. So, how did you get there?
So growing up, probably like both of you guys, I loved the game. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. My parents wanted me to get involved in other things, and I didn't want any of it. Just wanted to play soccer. And I played all the way through high school, went to UGA, played for UGA. And I majored in health and physical education. I wanted to be a teacher. I always knew I wanted to work with kids. And it was 2010. And I was basically waiting for a PE teacher to die to get a job. It was just, no one was retiring.
Yeah, right.
It sounds very morbid, but it's true. Okay.
Yeah, no.
And then my coach, one of my coaches in college, Coach Nugent, Steve Nugent, he was like, Glance, why don't you just apply for an assistantship and apply for grad school? So I did that, went to grad school, studied sport pedagogy. And then by that time, the economy had kind of turned around. And I started teaching health and physical education. Taught for about 4 years, and I was an athletic director.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Badminton, people's champ, undefeated. No, just kidding. But in my personal life, I was stuck on a conveyor belt. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I was following social norms. I was doing the next step. I had a boyfriend, moved in with a boyfriend, got married, bought a house. And all of that didn't really work out for me. And it kind of changed my trajectory. Because everything I had done up to that point was built around what can I do to start a family, to have my own family, be a teacher. You have time on the weekends, your kids can go to your school, the summers, that's kind of where my mindset was, where I was still working with kids and being able to coach at the school level.
All right.
So I was in a comfortable position, and I was approached by Soccer in the Streets.
Okay. Yeah.
To organize their school programs. They were the recipient of a grant. They were a grantee from the Atlanta United Foundation. Then it was the Blank Family Foundation to start after school programs. And from working in APS, Atlanta Public Schools, and coaching soccer, and it just kind of brought everything I wanted to do into one.
Yep.
And I think that was the best decision I could have made at that time in my life, because it brought back everything that I enjoyed in life, right? I just love the game. I'm a soccer nut. And I was able to share it with communities that may not have had the opportunity to participate, right?
Right.
So then I applied to be the director of coaching. Okay. It had been a long time since I was in the soccer world, the youth soccer landscape.
Right.
To that point in Soccer in the Streets, it's a grassroots level. It's very introductory.
Yep.
And we needed a director of coaching. And so I went to Jill Robbins, and I was like, Jill, I think I want to do this. Right. And I was like, I'll go after my licenses. I'll do it. And, she vouched for me with Phil, and then I was the director of coaching. And so from then on, like I was on a crusade to get these certifications just to be credible amongst my peers. At that time, Atlanta United was running a coach education program, and I was the only woman. It was the first CEP program was like the directors of coaching of the soccer development partners, like local clubs, and I was the only woman on it. But I never really thought anything about it until I started going to the United Soccer Coaches, the NSCAA stuff, or United Soccer Coaches. Sorry.
You're good.
So I went and I did my national diploma. And Lizzie Schmidt was actually on. She was like in her stages of like being an apprentice, I guess, like of teaching the courses.
Yep.
And there were 3 other women on the course that were amazing women. Kate Ward, she does a lot with the U.S. national U.S. women's national deaf team.
Yep. Yeah, right? The women's deaf national team.
Yes, thank you. And like just wonderful coaches and like top candidates in the course, and it was kind of eye-opening, and it was cool, and it I feel like it opened my eyes to like what I could go do. I continued on my crusade, and then I was in a happy place, and it kind of like my personal life kind of like didn't match up with what I was doing like with my career, and that's when I was like, man, I'm like kind of unhappy in this, and like it shifted my focus into everything like with my job. And so soccer in the streets grew like over the course of like 3 years. I think like we were serving like over like 5,000 kids in the Metro Atlanta area. And it really opened up my eyes again to like the systemic and institutionalized issues that kind of perpetuate like the different classes, and then even like gender discrimination as well, and like in different areas of Atlanta, in different cultures, because you go into these communities and you're an outsider, you're not, so it was very important for us to find people that worked in that community, lived in that community, had families in that community, and brought them on board and hired them to do the work in the community. Because me going in there, like it's not the same.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Yep. So can I pause for a second? Because this has been fantastic. No, it's great. Because one of the questions because I work with the Urban Soccer Diploma, and I helped create that with JT Dorsey and Michael Van Scherben, and Stacey Wilson helps a little bit too, just how do you, one of the questions I get at the course is how do you get more people involved, right? And evidently you figured that out, right? Because you said it grew like tremendously in 3 years, and that anybody would take that. So what was your secret? How did you do that?
To be honest with you, Soccer in the Streets is one of the oldest soccer nonprofit organizations. And over the years, Jill Robbins and Jason Longshore and everyone who's worked for that organization has spent time building trust in those communities. Building relationships. A lot of it is like built on just relationships, trust. Mm-hmm. A way we did it was going through the schools.
Yep.
And finding teachers.
Yep.
Usually PE teachers.
They haven't died.
I know. I'm sorry. It's true though. The economy.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, who wants to give up a PE gig?
Yeah.
I mean, you get your sweats all day. You get your summers off. It's a great gig. But go ahead. Sorry.
But just hiring teachers, working with the principals, working with the school district's athletic directors, and just building those relationships, and it's not always like a take thing. We're trusting you guys to be able to deliver this. And so if we step away, it's sustainable. But that's another thing in terms of like equitable soccer is how do you sustain something that's free? Because
Lauren, one of the things,
sorry,
when you joined, no, you're fine. When did the station soccer start? Like at what point? And how did that make things a little bit more accessible and equitable?
Station soccer, we opened 5 Points MARTA Station 2016. It was the announcement of the Atlanta United Foundation. Arthur Blank came and all our kids from our schools were there. It was a fun event. And that opened the opportunity to discuss kind of like transportation around youth soccer.
Okay.
So I listened and I watched the webinar you did with JT Dorsey, and going to the schools, going to their community is the most accessible way to get in there and be able to deliver your programming or have them deliver your programming. But through the transit system, you could connect multiple neighborhoods around each other. So we had like a village model. So we were in the schools in the communities. So we'd be like, say, 3 elementary schools that feed into the same high school. And then we would create a community program around that. And those fields are in those communities. So the most successful one they have right now is probably the West End MARTA Station, because it is like right in their community, and there's a park right across the train tracks from it that they also use for more games, because they like our registration like boomed up to like 200 kids, and just by having a visible field in the MARTA Station and then having the lights there, that kind of it brings a positive light. There isn't as much like negative activity like going on underneath the tracks there. And they just opened East Point too, which is right next to my buddy's pizza place. So it's right next to Oz Pizza. And it's across from the East Point MARTA Station, but it's right in the like downtown area of East Point.
Yeah. No, I'm nodding a lot because what you did is I did something similar like 15 years ago here in Indianapolis, 12 years ago maybe, in Indianapolis, where I went to the Indianapolis public schools, sat with the superintendent. We created a public school league, right? And all those public schools fed into a high school. So they played on Saturdays, and the high school coaches loved it, right? Because they're like, oh my gosh. And it was very equitable. It was very affordable. I trained the teachers, the school teacher. I actually coached a team, and but my job was to mainly go around and help the teachers, right? But I also did a big training, and you're right, absolutely. You got to take it to them, because you're absolutely right. Me walking in, who's this bald-headed guy, what's he know about us, right? So you're right. And even though, we can empathize some, a little bit, but you're right, absolutely. And that's a great model, and you mentioned one word there, sustainable. That's, and one thing that I'm happy is that the program is still going today, right? So 5-10 years later. So anyway, but no, I'm just nodding a lot as you're saying this. I'm like, this is great because I see a lot of like clubs, they want the kids to come to them. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work, and you got to figure out a way, you got to figure out a better model or a different model. And so no, keep going. Samantha, do you have questions? And because this has been great, Lauren, you've been very candid and very open, and it's been no. It's wonderful. And because really, I mean, we talk about opportunities for all kids, and we are missing a lot of kids, and there are a lot of great kids out there. And my experiences, I mean, those kids loved when we did the one night of practice a week. And we went on Saturdays and we played the little games, and they lived for it,
Right.
And it was actually, we actually developed a system where with the principals, where we tied in with behavior with school. So if they got a yellow card during the week, they had to sit out a little bit during the game. Right. So anyway, it was good. But anyway, Samantha?
Yeah. Well, actually, when we brought some of our academy teams out, I think maybe 3 years ago to play at the East Point station, which was a great experience because we just joined with all the Soccer in the Streets kids, mixed up the teams. And the soccer 3 or the 3 rule that we did, yeah, talk a little bit more on that and why that was such a big deal with the kids that you guys had at Soccer in the Streets. Because it really had a profound impact on our kids coming out there.
Just in terms of like, I guess like inclusion, like just being able to connect with someone from Loganville, where none of those kids have probably been like.
It was the first time our kids were on MARTA on that transit.
Right. And like it's an eye-opening experience to see other people that are from like different backgrounds, different places, different cultures, that they're just there because they want to play soccer. Like the game really does bring people together. And I remember that day. I remember your mom's cookies. They were very good. But that, especially 5 Points, because I think that station in general, it was the first one, and there aren't a lot of residential areas around there. Like kids, 5 Points, like no one really, it's more of like a business area, I guess, right? Office buildings. But it's a perfect location that it's like the central hub of the transit station, I guess. But it was good to be able to bring people from East Point, people from Vine City, people from Sandy Springs. Like it was truly like a melting pot of just like different people.
Yeah, and they had to kick us off the field too. I mean, we were there all day.
Yeah. And it's just amazing like what the game can do. And it's just a game, like it's a game with a ball and 2 goals. Like it's amazing. You go out to like places like, I don't know, you go out to like Clarkston, you have like a million different like countries represented, and all they're doing is like playing soccer for like as long as the light's out, as long as the sun's out, you know what I mean? And that I do miss that a lot, actually.
Well, how is what you've done with Soccer in the Streets transferred over to now your role with Atlanta United? Because the RDL, and it stands for Regional Development
School.
Yeah, there we go, RDS.
So I started coaching with them when I was still working with Soccer in the Streets, and the Regional Development School is a tryout-based program for boys and girls 8 to 14, and it's supplemental training to like their current playing environment. So it's not teams, but it's like training pools. And it's been refreshing because I've been able to coach more. I feel like a lot of my path has been like, I'll coach for a little bit and then I'm behind a desk for like a couple of years. And then I'll teach and I'm behind a desk for a couple of years. And then like I get that itch again, like where like I want to coach. And just continue to get the experience coaching. But so I've been doing that for about 1.5 years. And I have been working with the state association. We wrote a grant to U.S. Soccer for the Innovate to Grow Fund. And Georgia Soccer is a grantee, and we're partnering with them to deliver the same quality of training programs to 5 different communities over the course of the next 2 years.
Nice.
And a lot of the times, my experience with it, my computer is gonna die. My experience with it, in terms of equitable opportunities, a lot of the times with working like in the charity sector, the nonprofit sector, the quality of programming that's delivered to the players is kind of like a one size fits all. It doesn't, and there's always like assumptions made about like lack of character, and not everyone doesn't fit into those boxes, right? And so through this, we basically wrote it where it is truly an equitable and developmentally appropriate soccer program, where it's kind of like ODP, but it's not ODP. If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So like
kids coming from all over. Yeah.
Yeah. And a part of the grant is actually to provide coach education, grassroots. The first year is to 20 coaches, second year is to 20 coaches. So a total of 40 coaches from those communities will go through their grassroots licenses so that they're able to get into a D license.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. And that really makes it accessible for everybody. And the journey that you had through coaching education, how it impacted you, how has that led you to what you're doing now with the Women's Advocacy, which Lauren was the recipient of this past Charlotte Moran Scholarship to continue coaching education. But how has that continued on and led you to what you're doing now with Women's Advocacy and here in our state in Georgia?
Just my experience, like through all of these licenses and all of these conventions and, just chatting with people, is that there aren't a lot of women coaching at certain levels. And it's funny because I remember my first convention in LA, I had applied for a scholarship to go do my DOC diploma, the Don McEachin Award. So I went to the foundation reception. All right. And then I'm like talking to people. I'm out there by myself. Like it was the first time I'd ever been there. And this woman is like, all right, you coming to the next one? And I was like, I guess, like, what's the next one? She's like, the women's social. I was like, all right. And so like, I'm sitting down at a table with this lady who I don't know who she is. This is how ignorant I am. I didn't know who she was. And I'm sitting with like her, I think it was her aunt and uncle. And like, we're chatting. She gets up on stage and starts talking. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And then she sits down and I was like, I didn't realize who you were. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Like, I am so embarrassed. Like I honestly didn't realize like who she was at the, like, the president. So she's like, are you coming to the next one? I'm like, what's the next one? Like, it's like 11 o'clock. She's like, we're gonna go upstairs. Everyone's going upstairs. I'm like, all right, cool. And it was just so nice to like be included with all, like, I was looking around at the women in that room and I was just like, holy crap, how did I end up here? But I did ask her a question. I was like, how do you do this? Like, how did you get here? Like, how do you do this? And she was like, you just do what you say you're going to do. You follow through. So when I applied for the Charlotte Moran Scholarship, I was like, I want to bring this back to Georgia. And you're not the chair anymore, right? Of the Women's
Correct.
Advocacy.
Yeah, Haley Carter is.
Yep. But just, I wouldn't have continued to do my licenses without you. Like, you're the one who pushed me. Like, I was just like, I can't do this. Like, it was actually at 5 points when we were sitting down on the steps. Like, I was going through some stuff and like, you're like, you just needed to share that. Like, that's fine. You needed to share that. And I was just like, you know what? You're right. And it kind of switched my focus a little bit, if that makes sense. But we've started a women's advocacy group in Georgia to celebrate, educate, support, and advocate for women coaches. And we've only had 2 meetings per Zoom.
But they've grown.
We've grown. And it's a network of coaches or people in the game that want to continue to advocate for women in the game. And a big part of why, like, I'm so interested in it is to see more women that are qualified in positions of decision making. Because like you look at FIFA, there's like 6 of 37. You look at I looked up our board for our state association. Is it 3? 3? Yeah. But I really think that's where the game can be impacted at areas of decision making. And in terms of like education, being the pushers, being the Sam Snows of the world, go get your licenses, like go do it.
It's a gentle push.
Yeah, you need those pushers.
Well, but the other thing too, just like how you're saying where Amanda Vandervoort, asked you, are you coming to this one? Are you coming to this one? Yeah, you need someone to push you, but you also have to be willing to say yes and be open to those opportunities. So it wasn't all just being pushed for you. You also were saying yes and taking the risk to get out there and do those things.
True. And but just learning from you and learning from people that may not know, like I feel like I've come across so many women in my career that don't realize they're role models. But to continue to do that and continue to be role models for younger coaches coming up that, maybe they don't want to get into coaching because, they don't want to be they don't want to go get their C license because they're going to be the only woman on the course. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which you had experience with.
And then being able to give them like real life advice of things that you've gone through and experiences you've had that could help them along the way.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, because a lot of people don't realize that there are others looking at what they're doing and watching what they're doing and being inspired by that. So man or woman. So that's a great point. And I see Vince jump back on, and we are going way over time.
Look, I talked too much before, so that's why I got off. But Lauren, you've been really gracious, and thank you for everything. Thank you for your time today. Lot of really positive comments in the chat box. Someone said this is their favorite so far, and he's been on every one. It's Ian from Bainbridge Island. He also said Samantha Snow rocks, which absolutely. We call her a queen, right? Which is a good thing, right? And I guess according to my stepdaughters. But anyway, but thank you so much for your time. You've given us more than 15 minutes that we asked. You're doing fantastic work.
Oh, it's good, Lauren. It's good.
No, you're doing fantastic work, and thank you so much. And we'd love to have you come back on, maybe talk a little bit more about what you're doing with the Georgia Women's Advocacy Group, and maybe how that model can be replicated in other states. Because I teach for the Federation still, and I teach our courses, and I got to say this, the women on the courses are usually the best freaking coaches, because they get it, they listen, they're sharp. And so, we need more, just like, we just do. And so, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and everything. Samantha, thank you so much for helping out. And Lauren, thank you. And everybody else that wants to come back on and dare to come back on later on, we have Erica Dombach from Penn State University, former Erica Walsh. She's going to be on presenting a little bit later on today. So thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Samantha.